Welcome to the Lost Boys, the Found Fathers podcast. I'm Gabriel O'Sullivan, and joining me is my co-host and friend, Will Haycox. We are men who have suffered the loss of a child, and through this production, we desire to offer encouragement, strength, and hope to our fellow brothers who have traveled the same journey.
Good morning, Will. So we're going to be in episode 4 of our series entitled Servant Leadership, and today we're going to talk about some cool stuff. And the first thing going to be about the necessity for dads to be present and engaged. So why don't you kind of intro that and tell us, what does it mean to be present and engaged as a father and showing our servant leadership?
Good morning, everybody, or whatever time you're listening to this. We always record in the morning, so that's why we say good morning. So hopefully you can apply that to whatever time of day you're in. So, yeah, like you said, there's when I thought about this, the topic, the heading I put here is like being present and engaged, just like you said. And I think of like all the dads, the spectrum of dads that I have interacted with in my life, my dad, my grandparents, friends' dads, stuff like that. And I think you have like obviously taken the abusive relationships physically or verbally, whatever, out of the situation. You have everything from like a dad who doesn't work, or maybe doesn't work hard, doesn't care too much about providing for the family. The family's always struggling. Maybe the mom has to work to help, and not that there's anything wrong with moms working or needing to work, both parents to work. But if the dad's not carrying his weight outside of the home and everyone else in the family kind of has to pick up his weight and his burden, you have that. And then you have like the dad that I've seen a lot in my life that is a pretty good, loving father, but he understands his responsibility to be, I put food on the table. And so he goes to work, he works hard during the day, he comes home, and he's done his obligation for the family, like he doesn't play with the kids, he doesn't help them with their homework, he doesn't, interact with them a whole lot really at all. It's just, I put this roof over their heads, and I put the food in their mouths, I make enough for them to go and, play sports if they want. I'm done. I've done what I need to do as a dad. Yeah. And I've always thought like, that's good. Like, I'm glad you're not a deadbeat. I'm glad you're not, putting your kids out in the street or, not providing for your family financially. But like, that's only half or even less than half. That's only part of your responsibility as a dad. So then I'm not going to go through every step in what I picture as this like spectrum of dads, but you go further to the godly side and what I think is the right way to be a father and lead your family is to understand that you need to be there. You need to be there and do your responsibility outside the home. You need to work hard. You need to provide for your family financially. You need to show respect to who they are, show respect to who your wife is, and not going out and flirting with other women or, talking with your coworkers about, oh yeah, my old lady, she's the worst, and like participating in that conversation. I'm in construction, and I wouldn't say people sit around and badmouth their wives all day long, but there's definitely like conversation about, yeah, I'd love to do that if I wasn't married, or, I'd love to do this if, it wasn't so hard. Every time I try to go do this or that, my wife's always complaining. Like there's always some way you can put down your wife or you can disrespect her. And if you're not doing all that outside the home, I think you've done a great job. You respected your family. And then you need to come home and lead your family with the time you have with them. And, we've talked about how life is busy. I guess I'm starting that at 4 years old. Excuse me. I'm starting that with my daughter being 4 years old. We're just starting our first sport. We're doing T-ball, and I've talked about it several times in the series. You're on the other end of that where you have 3 playing sports, or at least whenever the seasons line up. You have all of your kids playing sports. And so I know leading your family can be different and difficult, and I can let you speak to it if it's not like every night I've got 4 hours or 3 hours with my kids and I'm going to do this and this and this, but it's more like, all right, my wife has to take this one here, I have to take that one there, and we got to bounce around. And like, what does leadership look like? Is it just being a chauffeur? Like, there's lots of different things we can go into there that you can jump into if you want to. But the primary thing I'm trying to get across first is you don't just lead by being there physically. You have to lead all of what we just talked about in the last episode. Go back and listen to it about leading a devotional. We kind of finished with the practical application of living out what you're preaching. And so taking that into this episode, you need to be engaged with your family. You need to be intentional with your family. You may go through periods in life where the last couple of months, the construction project I've been on has required me to work 55 to 60 hours a week. Not every week, but a lot of weeks. Excuse me. If you listen to the episode before this, I was great. The episode before, now it always comes back around, doesn't it, Gabe? Where at some point I'll lose my voice and I got to clear my throat 5 times, so I apologize for that. But I was in this season where I was working until 5:30 or 6 almost every night, and then turning around and having to work 2, 3, 6, 8 hours on a Saturday. And there's even been a couple of Sundays where I've had to go and let people into work and then come back after church and lock up. And it is what it is sometimes to do your job, but I needed to be intentional, and I think I did a pretty decent job at it some weeks and not as great others, of, hey, on Saturday at 3 when I'm done with work, we went yesterday to the Children's Museum. In the afternoon, let's go to Starbucks and get a cake pop for our daughter, and my wife and I can get a coffee and we can spend some time together. So just to find time to be involved in your kids' lives and be involved in your wife's life. And whether she's a stay-at-home mom, whether she works outside the house, be engaged with her, ask questions about her day, ask your kids. My wife is teaching our daughter, I don't even know what it is. It's not even pre-K. It's like pre-K. I guess it would technically be like 3K. And then she's going to go from there. So I'm asking my daughter when I get home, what did you learn in school today? And she's learning letters D, E, F or something. And so she can show me a little thing where she colored in the D and colored in the F and all that. And so just showing that you're interested in what they're doing, I think goes a long way to everything else that we're trying to teach our kids. If you're not a deadbeat dad, but you're disengaged and you're doing your job, and then you're coming home and it's all right, let's eat dinner together. I'm going to go sit on the couch for 3 hours and watch whatever game I want to watch. Your kids at a certain point are going to get the message. You don't really care about them. You'd rather sit on your lazy boy and watch your show. And if they're engaged in the show, sure, you can spend a little bit of time in air quotes for those that are not watching on Facebook. But you're demonstrating by what you're doing that your kids are sort of like a carry-on piece of luggage that you're bringing along with you on your trip, rather than bringing them in as a fellow traveler. And you're both going, you're both learning, you're both planning the trip together. If you're planning a vacation, you're asking your wife, where do you want to go? What's important? What do the kids want to see? We're going to Disney World. Are we going to go to, and I don't even remember, it's been 25 years since I went to Disney World, or 20. Are you going to, the Animal Kingdom and letting the kids see all the fun stuff? Are you going to the water park? I think there's a water park somewhere in one of the parks, and letting the kids have fun doing that? Or are you going to Epcot and you're going to imagine you're in France for the day? And the kids might think that's fun, but they might be why are we walking around? Everybody's wearing a beret and eating snails, sorry if you're French, but yeah.
I think what you're saying is definitely true, that we've got to be engaged when we're there, right? And so thinking about that too, it's certainly something I've been guilty of so much in my life, of I'm home, but I'm still not at home because I'm still at work, thinking about the things I need to do once the kids get to bed to finish up my work day. Okay. And so then that's cheating them and cheating my wife, because I'm not present. I'm still thinking about, okay, I've got to finish this up for my work day, or I've got this extracurricular thing, or I'm on this board or whatever, and I've got to, do all these other things. And so I'm you can be at home, but you could also be wishing your time away, that your kids will just go to sleep so you can get back to work. And that's not good either, because then I'm just telling you from experience, you're going to be short, you're going to be frustrated because your mind's not there. You're not going to be, you're not thinking about them. You're not putting them before you. You're being selfish is what you're being right there. And I'm saying that from a perspective of, I've been there, done that, and still struggle with that. And so I think it is really important that when you're there, you're there. we're not trying to sound like we're a couple of hippies here, but you got to be present. You got to be, you got to be present where you are. And, that's just the way it goes, man. And they need that. They deserve that. Your wife deserves that. Your kids deserve that. We want to make sure that we're modeling that for them, so that way it's not just about you. It's not just about you. It's accomplishing your dreams and your goals and your aspirations, and making them, kind of be, like you said, Will, your taglines. I kept thinking about the movie Mary Poppins when you were talking there about how, the daddy, Mr. Banks, he comes home at the beginning of the movie, and the kids are all being taken care of with the nanny or whatever, and then the dad comes home and he's just like, out of my way, get me my papers and my pipe, right? And then the kids are like to be, not even seen or heard, just out of his way. And then the mama's got her thing, she's with the ladies, whatever she was a part of. I forgot the name of it.
It's like a ladies auxiliary or
there
something.
You go, yeah. There you go. And so she's doing her thing, the dad's doing his thing, the kids are with the hired help kind of thing. And we know, like you said, there's going to be times in life that it's busy, and that's okay, because we want to also show our kids that, we are involved in the community, and that we are obviously wanting to make sure that we're doing the best in our career, but we have to, have that balance, as well. And again, part of the balance sometimes is probably bringing them along with us. And when you're having to work late, or you're having to work more hours, having that conversation with them, listen, I know I hadn't been around much lately, but here's why. And this is why I'm having to do it for right now. It's not going to be like this forever, but right now it just is. And this is why I'm doing it, to help them understand and appreciate that there's going to be times in your life where you have to do some things that you maybe don't really want to do, but you still got to do them, right? That's a big life lesson. I'm in the middle of that right now with a couple of mine, where it's like, I don't want to do this, whatever, math, I'm like, well, I know you don't, but you need to do it, because you need to, you need to learn how to, balance, your checkbook later in life, or you need to know how to, I've got this much money, I need to buy this much food. Do I have enough money to buy the food that I need, kind of thing, right? So, so it's again, back to that modeling, back to that example.
Yeah, and so by the same token, being present and engaged, and maybe I'll hop through this one a little quicker, but avoiding distractions is a big thing. And, I think you gave a good one there with, don't come home from work and keep working in your head, and I do that sometimes. Maybe not, I'm not sending a lot of emails or doing a lot of bookkeeping, but I am, I'm in construction, and so I might have a problem that something was designed this way and it can't be done. And so now I come home and I'm thinking for 2 or 3 hours about all right, how can I do that? Do I reroute this pipe? And can this thing slide over here? How do we build that? And I mean, that's good that you can keep your brain engaged, but you need to take the time, like you said, and set aside time for the family, be engaged with them when you're there, and not rob them of that time. Another thing that I think, I don't know if I'll say this generation, because I've seen it in, parents and grandparents too, but put your phone away. And I do say this as somebody who, my wife and I actually had a conversation the other day of a doing a screen detox or whatever, trying to pull back from how much time we collectively as a family, and not necessarily any one person, our kids or us, we don't think that any of us are overusing, but I think something my wife and I got into a habit of before we had kids is, we'd come home from work, we were both tired, we would do our house chores, we'd eat dinner, and as we were sitting down to eat dinner, we'd watch a show while we were eating dinner, and then we got into a show together, whatever it is, and we end up watching that show until it's about bedtime, and then we go to bed. And that's a habit that we've talked about breaking for years, but it's pretty much been our habit that we go and do things. We have playground in our backyard, and we go, my daughter will go and play on the playground when it's not cold or wet. And so we do things. It's not like every single night we're, all right, now it's time to sit and watch TV. But all that to say, we are recognizing we don't want our our daughter to grow up in like the stereotypical, 70s or 80s, where like TV tables, TV dinners, watching.
Yeah.
I think of like, you talk about movies, I think of like the Matilda movie. You remember that one with the little girl and her dad is Danny DeVito and he's a used car salesman, and it's a kid's movie,
Okay,
but it probably came out when you were in high
but
school, maybe. But there's this scene, and I don't know anything about the writer, what she's trying to communicate, but it's very similar to what we're talking about, because like there's this scene where the mom and the dad and the brother are all super into they're all like what we're just talking about. Their brains are gone, their eyes are glazed over. They're just sitting on the couch watching wrestling or whatever it is, and they're checked out. They're eating, like there's, I think if I remember the scene correctly, like the dad's wearing like a bib. He's getting after his food so hard, and the lights are low, and like she kind of, it's not like horror related, but she kind of like the lighting changes and everything, like it gets real intense and zooms in on their faces, and you see them so engaged in this show. And the girl Matilda is like, what are we doing? Like you can see in her face, she's like the only one who's not like totally focused on this, not zoned in or zoned out from life and tuned in to this wrestling or whatever it is. So that's an extreme example if you know what I'm talking about. But we don't need to be that way. We need to be asking our kids about their day, put down our phone. My wife talks about sometimes she goes to the park and there's a mom or there's a grandparent and we might be talking, you got like small parks like Happy Hollow over towards the east side, and it's small, it's got a fence, so maybe you could say it's okay. But we have a sports complex, Middle Tiger over here, it's a pretty big park. Massive, and there's like the playground is the size of your house, Gabe, or maybe even like bigger, the size of your property.
Yeah, it's true.
And so they have 10 to 50 plus kids on this playground, and my wife sometimes will tell me, I went to the park today and there's 3 moms sitting on the bench and they're not even talking, like having fun and then looking at their kids. They're all on their phone. Or there's a grandmother who's sitting here, she's standing on her phone. And not to say my wife doesn't pull up her phone and scroll through a couple of videos while she's at the park, but I think she does a really good job of being engaged and watching my daughter. And it's just crazy to think, like, the world we live in, that you're just going to let your 4-year-old, your 3-year-old, your 5-year-old just run wild in a park the size of that, with there's no gates or barriers. Any weirdo can come in and try to grab a kid. So that's beside the point. But all that to say, like, not just, I don't think it's 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds. I think our society is getting so tuned in on the phone, on constant distractions, whether it's social media, whether it's reading a book, whether it's whatever, listening to music. We just need to put the phones down. I'm not going to make that a sermon for today. We're already almost 20 minutes in, so I'll move on. But I think you would agree that we, when we get so focused on playing a game, looking at social media, whatever it is, even if we're, reading sermon notes on a sermon we were listening to, instead of spending time with our family, we've been through before. You can do good things at the wrong time, so you can do good things to excess, and now they become bad things. They become distractions.
Let's all. I mean, really, I think Will's thing is he's watching old Young and the Restless episodes on the internet, and that's what we're trying to say.
My grandmother got me hooked when I was a little kid. It's funny, I don't remember if it was that one or Days of Our Lives, I think was the other one. But yes, I definitely remember it. My grandmother's like one of the most industrious women that I've ever been around. Like, she's in her 80s now, and I'm pretty sure like every single day she's been a stay-at-home woman, I think just about her entire adult life. And she's always doing something. She has chores. She has, this is when I'm ironing. This is when I'm vacuuming. This is, like, her house is like, you could eat off the carpet. It's probably cleaner than what just came out of your dishwasher. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think of like the times my mom would be doing something and we were homeschooled. She sent us over to my grandmother's, and like 2 days a month we would go over there and do our homework, and she'd always be watching Days of Our Lives. And I remember even as a kid watching it, I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, what are we watching here? Just the dumb. And I'm like,
why is this on in the middle of the day?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, you'd be watching it and it's like, even half engaged like I was, and sorry, this is now a 3-minute tangent on Days of Our Lives.
My bad.
But it's like, didn't he die last week? Like, no, he's back. He died. My grandmother would know the whole story. She's been watching Days of Our Lives since before I was born, you know. But yeah, so sorry if you watch soap operas, and Nana, I'm sorry if you ever listen to this. I think it's kind of silly. But yeah, you brought it up, Gabe. This is your fault.
My bad.
But yeah, you definitely call me. That's what I do all the time.
That's right.
Oh gosh. So yeah. So set the tone for worship, and I put this in here like worship in a spiritual context in the Bible. I mean, in the church, and having your kids watch you. But we're talking about worshiping through how we live our lives, how we interact with the Bible when we do a quiet time and lead our kids in devotional. That we need to, I think you mentioned it, I can't remember if it was last episode or this, you know, you mentioned like having this attitude, like, all right, we got to do this, we got to do a devotional, we got to do a quiet time, let's just do it, you know. Like, I think what I'm thinking of is you talk about if you come home and, excuse me, if you come home and you are focused on like, I can't wait till the kids go to bed, so now I can do my work, or I can spend time with my wife, which is good. Like, we need to set aside time and do that. Mm-hmm. We're now short, and I'm talking to myself, and I'm thinking like, all right, the kids' normal bedtime is this. I'm moving it up 30 minutes tonight because I have this to do, or I want to do that. And so now it's like everything's not about like enjoying spending time with your kids. It's about like, all right, do it. Let's get to it. Come on, all right, hurry up, eat your food. Yeah. All right, now it's time to go to bed. Mm-hmm. And so instead of like, you know, what I put here was like, don't let family devotions feel like a chore. Be excited about the Word of God and let that enthusiasm spread to your kids. So by the same token, don't let spending time with your kids be a chore, you know. Like, and sometimes it is. I mean, sometimes it's like you're exhausted. We're at 3-4 years old. A lot of my daughter's friends are 3, 4, 5, and sometimes we go to a birthday party and I'm like, I don't know this kid. I don't know their parents. Why am I at this party? You know, like there's like 19 kids here, and I know 2 because they're my kids, you know. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's silly and it's a chore, but all that to say, like the 2 words that we have in here is like enthusiasm and reverence. And so when we're doing a devotional, and whether that includes a prayer and worship time, or if we are worshiping in our Sunday morning worship time in church with our kids, depending on their age, you know, don't be the stereotypical old Baptist dad, you know, who's got his hands in his pockets, his mouth is closed because apparently singing is feminine, or I don't know what the thought is there. But right. I know growing up in a Baptist church in the 90s, my dad sang, but I remember looking around, a lot of men weren't singing. I don't know. I don't understand that. Like, I've got the long hair. People make fun of me anyway. Maybe I'm not manly and masculine enough to know that it's not cool to sing. I don't know.
Thor had long hair, bro.
That is true.
Come on, man.
We're actually watching that again. Yeah, I love the long hair. When he cut the hair, it just
I don't know. What's up
lost
with
a little
that?
bit for me.
I agree.
But yeah. So all that to say, model to your kids that studying the Bible, worshiping the Lord is something that we get to do and not something that we have to do. And we should be excited about it. We should come to the Lord with reverence and with an understanding that we are given the gift to come before a holy God and be able to show Him that we love Him, that we're thankful for what He has done for us. And we take that seriously, and we want to honor Him with our attitudes.
Yeah. That's great. It's about leadership.
Mm-hmm. And then wrapping this episode up, we have the last couple of points here, is accountability and support. And maybe I'll let you jump in on part of this, Gabe. You talk about you having older kids and letting them start taking some responsibility in their own quiet time. And, what I put here was like, just something I saw online. It's a family devotional team. And it's basically just the idea of like, when they're a little kid, maybe it's okay. It's totally fine for the dad to run everything. I'm picking the Bible story. All the kids, put your butt here, here, and here. You got your water, you got your crackers, everything you got. Like you said the other episode, the kids aren't all running through the house, trying to find this toy that they lost 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. All of a sudden,
my daughter does that. She lost a bracelet yesterday, like the last week. She's been, I don't know my bracelet. Like, I don't know, baby. I haven't seen it in 2 weeks. I have no idea. But that idea of like the dad takes charge. He has done all the reading, all the prep. He does all the teaching, and then he does the prayer, and everyone goes out. Now they're a little bit older, and maybe you could speak to like giving the kids an opportunity to lead some of that.
That's great. I mean, so kind of the way we do that, and it just happens usually kind of organically, is that I don't do it every time, but I should. But like our daughter, she's super into singing, plays guitar, writes music, like the whole thing. She's going to go to school for that. So I'll be like, all right, you're going to lead us in a worship song, right? And so she'll lead us in a worship song. Sometimes it's a cappella, sometimes she'll get her guitar out. And we hadn't done that like a lot, but I wish I would do it more, because it's just more impactful, and it gets our hearts prepared to hear the word, and then I might be like, all right, now, have one of our kids do the prayer, and then one of our kids read the Bible story, right? Or read the Bible. And then we'll all kind of take turns, like, hey, what is God saying to us during this time? But that way everybody's playing a part. And so, it's good. It makes it more, I think, it's just better when we're all engaged in it, and it's not just, not just me or not just my wife. So good. That's a good idea. I need to do a better job of that, because I don't do it enough.
And I think of, just trying to give you all the practical benefits and just sell this to you, I guess. Like, and your daughter obviously doesn't have an issue with being on stage or, being the center of attention, or not that I'm saying she needs to be the center of attention, but she doesn't have an issue with leading in worship. I've seen her do it.
Yeah.
And to a lot of people. So she's definitely further along in her public speaking than I was. I was terrified till I was like 20, 22. But you're also preparing your kids for, in a small way here, you're giving them a little task, however old they are, 8 or 10 or 13, 14. You're giving them a little task. You're telling them you need to prepare for this task. Like, I've got you, you're reading the scripture. Your responsibility when they get a little older maybe is to like prepare. I don't know. I'm just trying to throw something out here. Like, you prepare like an application. Like, how are we going to apply Daniel and the Lion's Den, is what I was talking about last episode, to our lives now. Like, you're giving the kids a little task, and then it's almost like a show and tell. You talk about your daughter, leading your family in worship. You're giving her the opportunity to lead in worship, and I don't know how long she's been doing that at church, but I'm sure some of that comes from the time and the practice she's had preparing something, coming in front of the family and leading it. And so you're giving them responsibility in serving the Lord and making their faith their own, and not just sitting down and listening to dad do a devotional. But you're also preparing them for life, no matter where they work, no matter whether they go to college and have to do presentations, or they just go through high school and then go to the workforce. There's going to be times when they have homework or they have a project they have to prepare for. They have to take time to go into research and to know what they're doing, and then have to go out and present that. And if we are doing everything for them, and then all of a sudden we just hand it to them like, all right, you're leading all of the devotional today. You're picking the passage, you're doing everything. Dad, I don't know how to do this. Like, you've been doing this the last 10 years. But like you said, if it's been her task, or it has in the past been her task to lead us in worship, then depending on, what you're going through and the age appropriateness, she has to spend a little bit of time thinking through, like, all right, in worship leadership, you got to prepare the song that gets your heart to the right place. And if you're talking about, generosity, then she's singing a song thanking God for his generosity and love. And so there's the gears in her head are turning down a certain path, and that prepares her for doing a school project, for, whatever the Lord calls her to do later in life. And so that just popped into my head there as we're thinking, like, you're giving your kids life skills that are also skills to serve the Lord and to be faithful and engaged and independent believers at a certain point. Obviously, we hope our kids make the faith their own, and hopefully that's early enough when they're still in our house. But at a certain point, they move out of the house, and now they're 23, and they got to find a church family somewhere, and they don't know, am I going back home to my church? I go somewhere else out of town, and they have no experience being in charge of their own faith. That's a lot harder than if they have been taking some leadership in their own faith, doing their quiet time, leading a devotional for the family one night for 5, 6, 7 years at that point. So you're giving them skills that are going to stick with them. And the last thing I want to mention here, we've talked about accountability and discipleship partners and stuff like that a lot of times, maybe several episodes back. But I remember we talked about it specifically. We were talking more and more about the grief of losing a child. It's just having accountability with other fathers. And so I think it should be pretty self-explanatory. I won't go into the weeds about accountability or the benefit of it. But like we both said multiple times when we've been going through this series here, we can certainly use someone else to bounce these ideas off of, things that I've put in here, you'd be like, oh, that's a great idea. I haven't thought about that. And there's several things that you've said, and like in my head, I like music, but I'm not, I guess, as oriented towards music as your daughter is. And so I'm not really thinking about like having a music time in our quiet time. And so like that's something that I know a 4-year-old, and my son is just over 1, can really get into music and really want to, dance and sing and be happy. And so just having someone that can encourage you when it's been a month, and like we talked about earlier, when it's one of those times of work where you have to sit down and be like, hey kids, I know you've seen me for like an hour and a half a day for the last month, and I'm sorry for that, and I'm sorry I've worked Saturdays and everything else, but this is why, this is where we are as a family, and this is why I'm working the way I am. But you're also having another man to pour into you and be like, hey man, I know it's been tough, like you're feeling worn out from work. You're also feeling like you're failing as a dad because you're not spending time with your kids. You feel like maybe not even failing. I feel this sometimes of like, I'm just missing it. Like in construction, and I'm sure you run your own business, so you have to have a plan and a process and know where you're going. You got to plan out for the future. And so when I'm a construction superintendent, and my boss used to tell me this years ago, and I didn't really understand it, but he lives like 2 months in the future. And I'm not quite to 2 months. I'm probably about a month. But he's already thinking now about like what he's doing on a job site in May. He's already thinking through like, and he's like, again, he's way better at this than I am. He's really good at his job. He's thinking like, all right, I'm putting in flooring. So what do I need to do before flooring? Who needs to be here? Who needs to prep for that? What's after flooring? Do I have my HVAC unit turned on so the carpet can acclimate and it doesn't get installed, and then you turn the units on and sucks humidity out? And maybe there was too much humidity and the adhesive didn't work. And so now it's going to start peeling up, or the carpet shrinks or expands. Like there's so many little things that he's thinking of now in May. And so I say all that to say it's very easy to live in the future, and time passes so quickly and you feel like you're not spending any time with your family. I'm thinking like in my head, I'm already thinking like this project's finishing early April. I don't know what I'm going to be doing the next 3 weeks, or towards May, we're doing this, we're doing that. We have a trip in June, and I'm missing today. And so having that other man to challenge you and be like, hey, you're doing a good job at work, but turn off the third week of May in your head and think about, what's today, the 22nd? Think about what you're going to do on March 22nd with your family, because your kids aren't living in May. They're not thinking about May. My daughter's 4. She's probably not thinking about dinner time tonight. She's thinking about right now. Yeah. And so just encouragement to you guys to find somebody, whether it's somebody at church, a friend, a pastor, whoever you can get with and can hold you accountable, maybe not even in a formal setting, but just somebody that you can reach out to and be like, hey man, I'm really struggling with being a good spiritual leader for my family. Can you pray for me? Or, can we talk? Can we catch up? So I think that's all something I need more of.
That's good.
Sure.
Yeah, you're right. And it makes a difference too, because you'll find out that like these struggles aren't unique to you, most likely. Like these are things that other guys are dealing with, right? So then you're able to get that encouragement from them that they're in the same boat that you're in. We definitely found that in our small group, when we like go around and like maybe doing prayer requests, and it's like, oh wow, this family's dealing with the same stuff that we're dealing with their 13-year-old, right? And so it's been good to know that you're not on an island. And then, I think in closing, I'll say Van Halen said it right? Right now. Okay. Like that's where you want to live. You want to live right now. And then, like you said, with the accountability, have another man. Tupac maybe said it best in the movie Juice. We up in this thing together. So if you got another guy that's coming alongside,
just ending the podcast. Yeah.
That's right. If I could drop the microphone,
yes,
I'll drop it.
Yeah, but it's too expensive.
It's too expensive. I'm not going to drop it. So yeah,
Van
find
Halen
that
and Tupac.
There you go, man. Find that dude that that you can be up in this thing together with, okay? Because you can have each other's backs, and that'll make a big difference. And that's what we're trying to be for you virtually, right? Because again, we know sometimes guys just don't want to talk, and they don't want to share their emotions and whatnot. And so this gives you an opportunity to, to kind of get in there and be a part of something, but without, until you're ready to find that person. But we definitely encourage you to find that guy that you can be accountable to, and that, that you can have each other's back. Yeah, so yeah, anything else on this? Okay, great. So make sure you continue to follow us on the socials, Lost Boys to Found Fathers. Check out my books, Every Little Thing, and Thy Will Be Done. You can find those where books are sold. We're going to keep going with this series. A couple more episodes here coming up in the next month. So make sure you keep following us on that as well. Let's not be lost. Let's be found in Him.